Hey there, groovy dudes and dudettes. This is Thomper and Be Thompin', and in this video I'm going to give you a very quick step-by-step instruction on how to install these Warn VRX 25S winches on these 2022 Yamaha Grizzly 700s. So my goal here is to give you very quick step-by-step instructions, but also I want to talk to you about some pitfalls in the ordering process and other things you can do to make the installation a little bit easier. So some of those things that we're going to go over are going to cover the mounting plate. The Warn mounting plate for the VRX 25S with synthetic rope does not fit these machines, even though Warn says it does and Rocky Mountain ATV says it does. That's who I ordered mine through. So more on that later. There's an aftermarket solution that's half the price and appears to be just as good of quality, and it absolutely fits. The other thing I want to talk about is this little Yamaha product. It's a little wire lead. It's about a $15 wire lead that allows you to, instead of splicing into your DC outlet, your keyed on power source over there on the right hand side of the ATV, you can unplug that outlet, plug this in, and you've got a simple little bullet style connector to allow you to hook up your winch controller power. So that's just a small little additional step that you can use to make the installation process a lot easier. Also, instead of using the forged steel hook that come with these are fine, but I'm a believer in closed winching systems if you can get your hands on them. So Rocky Mountain ATV, their in-house Tusk brand, just came out with this splice thimble. So I'm going to be trying this. It works with synthetic line and wire rope. So I'm going to give that a shot. I'm not going to show the splicing on camera. There's tons of videos that show how to do that the correct way, so I don't need to be doing that on here. But I'm going to try that thimble out. And lastly is going to be the contactor location. So here's a sideways view of the winch mount. The winch line would be coming out this direction. Normally Warn wants you to put the contactor right on the back of the winch mount, so it'd be sitting essentially right in front of your front differential and right behind the mount plate. So that would expose it to a lot of water. A lot of the forums say that there's absolutely no issues with that whatsoever. Some people say that they've had problems with water intrusion into their little contactor. So if you have the time and you feel like taking it on, mounting it up higher up is always a little bit better, out of harm's way and out of any water and sticks and brush that could mess with those wire connections. So I'm going to show you where I chose to mount mine. Long story short, I stole my idea off of the Grizzly Central forum. So I'll show you how I'm doing my version of that. All right, let's get into step one. Before we dive into the first step, let me show you the issue with the mounting plates so that you order the correct version. There's 4 mounting holes for any winch mount on these Grizzlies. There's 2 in the front, up front, and there's 2 up here in the back. Those are pre-threaded, it looks like. So here are the 2 mounting plates I have. Here's the one from Warn, which was provided in the kit that I purchased through Rocky Mountain ATV, and it said that it would fit. And here's the one from KFI. It's $50. This one's about $100, and they're both steel, powder coated. They should be perfectly fine. I know for a fact that the KFI fits absolutely perfectly as well. But here is the issue. Look at how wide the front is on these two. The KFI has these notches cut out, which allow it to sit into the winch mount location perfectly fine. Whereas the Warn plate has a much more material over here on left and right. This extra material interferes with your stock skid plate, the plastic one, or any aftermarket skid plates you may have. So I'll put the KFI one up in here real quick. Bear with me. Trying to do this one-handed. All right, there we go. So that is mounted flat and secure right now, and you can see how you have a nice mounting location, and your house fair lead fits up perfect. So the problem with the Warn winch plate is that extra material sits right here and pushes up against your skid plate. So you'd have kind of like a buck tooth or like an underbite situation going on if you were to bolt the worn winch plate down. This one obviously doesn't have that issue. So the way around that is to either go with Warren's steel wire rope, which has a mounting plate that's more similar to this because it comes with those roller fair leads. But I specifically wanted a wire rope winch, and this is the mounting plate that Warren provides for it. Oddly enough, and you can go on the forums to confirm this for yourself, Warren has been aware of this issue for years, but their answer is to just not fix it, I guess, which is really odd because that's just eliminating a little bit of material from their drawing before they put it through the machine and put the bends on it and everything. So Warren, come on, fix this little issue. Your synthetic rope winch mounts for your VRX line need to be improved upon so they actually fit these Grizzly 700s. So step one is going to be to remove this top plastic shroud. It just pops up and slides out. And bear with me a second. Next, you're going to want to remove your front rack. You have two 12-meter bolts up front, and then down here on the sides you've got a 12-millimeter bolt on each side, and then up underneath here connecting the rack is another 10-millimeter bolt on both sides. So pop those all out to get your front rack off. Next, you'll want to get this final front plastic piece off just to give yourself a little bit more room to run wires and everything. It's held on by simple retention clips, and then two black retention clips here in the front. You just pop them out with a flat tip screwdriver. So with the front compartment completely exposed, it's always a good idea to disconnect the negative terminal on your battery whenever you're working on anything electrical. All right, I've been fiddling with this for a minute now, and I feel pretty confident in saying that if you're going to use the KFI plate, go ahead and mount the plate to the machine first. I've already loosened up the front of my aftermarket skid plate here to give me a little extra room to work with. Mount it to the machine first, and then mount your winch to the plate. If you're going to stick with the Warren plate, which is a little bit skinnier, you can mount the winch to the plate and then the plate to the machine by actually kind of fitting it through the front or the side a little easier. But just this KFI is just a little too wide and wonky to fit through there. So I've got everything mounted up now, and the house fair lead here is loosely mounted. It came with a couple bolts and nylon locking nuts there, so I'll tighten that all up, and then I can remount my front skid plate there. Okay, so everything's buttoned back up here just fine, except for the final mount for the front of my skid plate. Look at this. This is where the mount would go, and the post for the winch contact, the positive terminal there, is going to be almost touching it. Pretty darn close, and I still have to fit a rubber boot over top of this post once the wires are all hooked up. So I'm either going to relocate this bracket down low or somewhere else, or just possibly go without it. We'll see. There's another mount down here that's pretty darn secure. That shouldn't really go anywhere. Okay, so this next part's a little bit silly but important. Normally you're going to mount your contactor up behind your winch plate, right in front of your front differential. Again, I don't want mine that low and submerged in water all the time, although this is supposed to be ultra waterproof and it's designed to be mounted there. Instead, I would like to put it up here underneath the plastics just so it's a little bit more protected. However, these newer Grizzly 700s have this plastic protrusion right here that didn't used to be there. And this was a really popular spot for people to mount these contactors. It was up and out of the way and a little bit more dry and secure than before. So I spent like 30 to 40 minutes trying to figure out a good spot to mount this thing. I tried down here. It's just a little bit too tight, not going to work. So I copied someone off the Grizzly 700 forums, and I made a little bracket right here. So this is pretty ugly, but it's very simple. All I did was take a piece of plastic cutting board and I put it on top of the battery bracket using zip ties, and I mounted it to this little black back plastic plate. Jeez, BBPP there. Yeah, this plastic plate at the back here that kind of protects your steering stem a little bit. I just zip tied it there. So this is going to give me a platform to then mount the contactor on. And I can make all my connections, run them to the battery, and then run them down into the winch fairly easily. And this will give this enough room to sit comfortably and up out of the elements. One thing you gotta be wary of is to kind of do a mock-up with your black plastic shroud that covers this. There's this front bulge that gives you a lot of room underneath there, but underneath this flat portion there's essentially no room at all. So just kind of keep that in mind where if you're going to do the same thing with that little mount, keep that in mind so you can give yourself enough room for everything to breathe down there. So the next thing you'll want to do here is start to mount up all your wiring. Word to the wise here, before you put up all your wiring, make sure you've got your little rubber booties installed on these. The blue and the yellow, get one on each end. And your red and black wires that connect your contactor to your battery, just get a single booty on there. So mount up your switch, get it mounted on the handlebars, but don't hook up any wires yet. Mount up your contactor in a location you like. Be advised, wherever you decide to put this thing, it might be easier to hook up all your wiring first and then to mount it securely to the ATV. So yeah, after you kind of loosely mount up everything and you plumb all your wires using zip ties and stuff, you can then choose to trim them down if you so please. Alright, so everything is mounted up below. I don't have my little rubber boots on yet, but these are all secured down. I have zip tied these wires that go from the winch up to the contactor. I ran them up the front of the frame. I drilled a 1/2-inch hole here through the plastic. I kind of routed them through there, and now they're just resting easy on the front here. So I have my platform bracket that I built for the contactor. I've yet to secure that. The winch is mounted up to the front, but it's not connected to anything here, as you can see. And I have the battery terminals, or I'm sorry, the wires that connect the battery to the contactor as well. So I am going to now wire up all the wires from the winch into this contactor. I'm also gonna wire up all the wires that go to the battery, but I'm not gonna hook them up to the battery yet. And then I will plug in these little connectors into the contactor as well. And then I will also take the switch power source, and again, because I got this wire lead from Yamaha, I'll put that part number below again. I can simply unplug the 12 volt down here. It's gonna be tough to see, but I can simply unplug those two white plastic connectors, which that's your connector for your 12 volt power source, which is key on. I can plug it back in so it does have power again, and then I can also hook up two different power sources. You get these bullet style connectors, and that's what I'll use to hook up the switch power source. So I'm going to do all that, secure it all down, and then I'm going to hook it up to the battery and secure any loose wires. I may decide to trim these wires a little bit too, we'll see. Okay, and we are all threaded up. The winch is hooked up, wired up. I've got everything tucked away. So if you do not shorten some of these cables and you mount your contactor up pretty high, you're going to end up with a large wound of them. I did not shorten up the cables that go to your switch, because those kind of tucked away nicely right on top of the battery bracket here. So I'm hoping that that does not interfere with the black plastic piece that goes over top. If it does, I might have to move it off to the left or so, but I've got a little bit of line spooled out and everything's hooked up. Everything's working just fine, so I feel pretty confident in all that. It's all hooked into a keyed on power source, and now I'm going to undo all this line, feed it through here so I can have a nice tucked up system for the front end. So again, there's there are plenty of other videos by professionals showing you how to undo this line, feed it through these splicer thimbles, whatever you want to call them. This is an aluminum one by Tusk, Rocky Mountains brand. Plenty of videos that show you how to do that. But basically, you just unwind this, feed it through the thimble, and then you take a threading needle and you kind of go through the rope twice, and then the rest of, I only got one hand to show you how to do this, but the rest of the rope just kind of feeds down into the center of this primary rope. So I'll see where I can feel it, where it ends. Yeah, it feels like it ends right about here. So there's that much internal line approximately resting on the inside. Well, it's late March and down near DC, and we're getting a crazy ice storm. This is a little weird. A little bit of snow, ice, hail, a little bit of rain in there too. So I'm gonna finish this up now, but as you can see, sorry for the poor lighting. I'm inside my garage trying to do this real quick before all this rain hits, but as you can see, I'm just kind of splicing through. Again, the other videos show you how to do that, but now I'm just gonna feed the loose end of the line down the main line and pull it out. You watch those other videos, the how-tos, they'll show you just how to do it. After that, I'm gonna wind this sucker up, put the racks back on, and get this thing back in the garage. All right, thanks for watching, everybody.